science is real.
Netflix on the screen, healthcare in between, physics, art, and math, got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive, blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need rich blues we sing, to the future memory, health and science in the mix, Midridge got the fix. Complex subjects make
right
clear
now
every episode
in ways that we actually acquire
leads the way,
and ways that make me more efficient.
in the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams, through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to MedBricks. Good afternoon for this very special Friday afternoon special edition of MedBricks. Hello, I am Susan Davis, and I am here to announce that on this very special Friday afternoon, we have an amazing guest, a very special guest today, coming live from Silicon Valley. An icon of Silicon Valley is joining Romana live. So I'm here to introduce you guys and bring you live to that special treat today on Friday. But first, we're going to watch a video. If we have that ready, we're going to watch an introductory video of our very special guest, Mr. Kanwal Rekhi. He's here today to talk about his new book, The Groundbreaker. He's just back from a tour in India, introducing that book across the country and here now in the United States. So let's get started. And before we meet him live, again, he's also been on our show a handful of times. Let's watch our video.
Kanwal Rekhi's life embodies one of the greatest arcs of the modern era, from a forced displacement in the aftermath of partition to the frontiers of the Silicon Valley innovation.
In 1947, 200 years of British rule came to an abrupt end, and this vast subcontinent was divided between an independent India and the new Muslim homeland of Pakistan. It was called partition, but this British-led plan became one of the most catastrophic events of the 20th century. Across India, millions of Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs fled their homes in the largest forced migration ever recorded. Over 1 million people lost their lives in the chaos and violence of partition.
Rekhi's 13 family members crossed a hostile border into a fragile, newly independent nation, India, struggling to define its future. Out of instability emerged discipline and resolve. Rekhi studied engineering at the prestigious Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, and later moved to the United States to earn a master's degree in electrical engineering at the Michigan Technological University. After a series of jobs and layoffs, Kanwal Rekhi eventually found his way to Silicon Valley. What began as uncertainty became a transformative turning point, one that would change both his life and the future of modern communication. TCP/IP stands for Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. Sounds technical, but it is the foundational language of the computer communication, enabling machines across the world to exchange information reliably. Modern medicine is one of its most critical beneficiaries. From text messages and emails to electronic health records, lab results, radiology images, and so on. In Silicon Valley, Kanwal Rekhi played a pivotal role in transforming TCP/IP protocol from an academic idea into reliable computer hardware Ethernet interface cord, helping make every computer a first-class citizen of the global network. Every computer able to send, receive, recover from errors and participate reliably. That transformation is what allowed global computer communication and eventually modern digital medicine to scale, thanks to Mr. Kanwal Rekhi. Kanwal Rekhi became the first Indian American entrepreneur to lead a company to a public listing on the Nasdaq exchange.
Why can we change the image and brand of India and Indians? And the only way you can change the brand of India and Indians is by showing to the world, hey, we are as smart people as anybody else. You can't tell people we are smart. You have to show it to them.
Kanwal Rekhi co-founded TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs, a non-profit organization to move Indian entrepreneurs from the margins to the center of Silicon Valley's innovation economy. Through mentorship, trusted networks, and access to capital, TIE enabled Indian founders to become a company builders, investors, and board-level directors. Today, TIE has grown into 63 chapters across 17 countries worldwide, an impact made possible by Kanwal Rekhi's vision and leadership. He remained deeply devoted to his alma mater, Michigan Technological University. He gave back through lasting philanthropy. The university honored him with an honorary degree, doctorate, and building named for him and his beloved late wife, Anne Rekhi. Today, Dr. Kanwal Rekhi continues to inspire young founders. His life stands as a testament to service through entrepreneurship. Thank you, Kanwal.
Yeah, let me bring yeah. Okay. Can you, so I'm going to be joining with you, so you can introduce, I'm going to introduce, let me join with you together. We are all going to be.
Without further ado, Ramana, let's
Yeah.
get to our special guest. That was an excellent video.
Yeah, I'm just, it's a little bit, my computer was a little bit of is a new, the layout was a kind of new here. I'm struggling a little bit, So let me see that, this is the one or this is the one. Where is the, oh yeah, I got it. Where is it? Two.
Any moment, because
Yeah.
Kanwal and Ramana are together.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
So.
Oh my God! What's something has happened, but we need to come closer, maybe a little bit far, little bit. Okay, Hey, welcome to the MedBix webcast. This is Ramana Annamaraju. I'm the host. Thank you, Susan, joining with us. Maybe I will.
Ramana, just go back to the frame you were in before. Put you and Kanwal in the bigger picture.
All right, there we are.
Yeah, there we are. Thank you so much for joining with us. It is a very special moment. I'm at Mr. Kanwal Rekhi's house, actually, in his house in Silicon Valley, center of Silicon Valley. Let us talk a little bit about, his journey in the United States. For this, he finished, as you saw in the video, that he finished his degree and then moved to Silicon Valley. A lot of people are interested in his Silicon Valley journey. That's how it happened, where he is one of the first few Indians came to Silicon Valley, really opened the Indian diaspora entire technology field for all of them, for all of us. So let me ask him, Kanwalji, that you can look at the camera, Kanwalji, let me ask you, what is the struggle we went through tell me journey to Silicon Valley from the total journey to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so I arrived in the US in 1967.
Yeah.
And I went to Michigan Tech. I did my master's there, and then I went for a first job to New Jersey, in 1969. So my first job lasted about 7 months, and the mini computer industry was consolidating. My company lost out, so I got laid off, and I moved to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, with my second job in 1970. And I was there working for a company called SCL, Systems Engineering Labs. we supplied computers to NASA, and that company also got in trouble when NASA put the man on the moon and had no follow-up programs. So I ended up getting laid up second time, and then I went to work for a large company called RCA Computers in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I got laid up third time. In 1971. 1971 was a bad year, in the U.S. The economy was not doing that great, and so I moved to Santa Clara Valley, in California, which came to be known as Silicon Valley later, but back then it was Santa Clara Valley, and I arrived here in November of 1971.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the situation? What are the companies existed before you came to Silicon Valley? Where is the situation of technology at that time? What are the stage of technology when you came to Silicon Valley?
So in 1971, it was very early days of technology, in the US. Intel, AMD, National were startups in the valley. Predates Apple, Sun Microsystem, Microsoft by almost a decade. And, you know, chip industry, semiconductor industry was just emerging here. And I didn't work for any of them. I went to work for a defense contractor called Singerlint, which was doing flight simulators for the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy. And I worked at Singerlint for almost 9 years.
Oh, very, as a brilliant engineer, I can tell you that, the Kanwal Rekhi is one thing I respect him for his engineering qualifications. He's a really deep inside thinker in that area, engineering mind at the best. Kanwalji, so when you came there, you started as an employee of the defense contractor, right? That's what you're saying, with the Air Force. And how the government regulations at the time to work on, you need a clearance from security clearance and all those things?
Oh, yes, I did need the security clearance, and I did get the security clearance in 1972 or 71, 72. Yeah, 72. I had a secret clearance because, to be able to do what I was doing, to be able to see the specs for those planes for which I was building simulators, you needed that. And, I don't remember having any trouble getting the security clearance. And I had that till the day I left Cinderland in 1979.
Okay. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be off the screen, but I'll be online. Kanwalji is going to be full screen there. So that's much better. So I will be asking questions, outside. I will be in audio. Okay, Susan, do you have any question? Let us start with your question. I'll give you a chance to ask question for you. Anything?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to see you again, Kanwal. I can't wait to hear about your trip. I know that Ramon is probably about to ask you about your book. There was something I read the first couple chapters of your book before today, and something that stood out to me with your amazing background. You just mentioned your business background, the jobs you took going from Florida over to the United States from Florida, and then eventually out to Silicon Valley. And now you're known as an entrepreneur of entrepreneurs around the world. There was something you said in your book at the very beginning that someone else on this podcast said just very recently. She was a Nobel laureate, and she said, "I'm just a regular person. I'm just a regular person." So I found it interesting. You said very similar words, that you were a regular man, an ordinary man who's now done extraordinary things. What a journey. And what do you think about that statement?
Well, I am a pretty ordinary person, a lower middle class, from India. I had a pretty ordinary education. Ended up, with a little bit of luck at IIT, Bombay, which turned out to be a top-notch school. IITs are sort of in the same league as MIT in America. And they get the smart students. And so I finished there in 1967, and I came straight to US. There was nothing special about me.
But I have to interrupt you, because at IIT, apparently, according to your story, it was very difficult to get in there. There was a lot of people trying to get those very few spots. I think you said 200 spots across all of their locations. and you got in unbeknownst to your family at the time.
So IITs were hard to get into. There was this entrance exam that you had to master. It's like SAT, but it's more competitive than SAT, and you know, they rank you. And back then, this is now 1963. Only 800 people, or maybe 1,000 people a year were getting into IITs, and with a little bit of luck, I
And
said,
a really good score.
yeah, sat through the joint entrance exam, but there were 5 IITs. They had a joint entrance exam, so I made it. And you know, yeah. It was hard. It was hard, but I guess I was smart enough to do it.
So let me ask you a question on Kanwalji. Your first entrance into the entrepreneurship, to the technology. How it happened? Just give us a journey up to that point. Why you created the entrepreneurship. Why at that time nobody has the idea of entrepreneurship technology side. You're one of the startups you did. What is that journey up to?
So 1971, I arrived here, and I didn't do my startup till 1982. So there was 11 years of me working, at jobs in the valley, and
What are you doing, Ramana?
Yeah, at this time I'm bringing my notes a little
Oh,
bit. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, go ahead.
So I mentioned I got laid up 3 times, and that sort of told me that you couldn't depend upon a job, forever. Jobs are, short-term arrangements, and so I told myself, after that one, eventually I need to be on my own, my own master of my own destiny, and but it took me time to get there. After being laid up 3 times, I was married. Before my third layoff, I had 2 children. So so I was looking for some stability in life, and so I stayed there at Cinderlink for about 9 years.
Stability in life. That's fun. You don't often hear an entrepreneur say, I was looking for stability in life. So I went
Well, not many
entrepreneurial route, Kanwal.
not many people that laid up 3 times either, right?
That's true.
So once you are laid up, you have self doubts. Was it me? Because my friends were not getting laid off, and so but eventually I realized that even though I was doing really well and making good money, I wasn't getting the promotions I thought I deserved. And by 1980, I was starting to feel that it's time for me to make a move. And so 1981, the IBM PC was announced as a new desktop computer by IBM, and Apple was there, but Apple was a home hobby type of machine. But IBM PC was a business machine on your desktop at the office. And that became very clear to me that with IBM PC on your desktop, mini computers in the bathroom, mainframes in the computer center in the back, lots of other super micros, somebody will have to network them. And I saw that as my opportunity. And 1981 December, left my job, and me and my 2 partners, and we opened the doors with this idea of building computer networking hardware and software for all types of computers in April of 1982.
Which
that was the start.
That was groundbreaking alone. Your life story is groundbreaking, but right there, that decision to leap, to burn the boats, if you will, and move forward, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a big decision because there were not many, if any, Indian entrepreneurs in the valley, and Indians by that time had earned the reputation of being good tatties, but there were no example of Indian general managers, Indian marketing people, Indian sales people, all these things you need to do as an entrepreneur. So we opened the door in April of 1982. It was hard to get venture capital. It wasn't till the end of the year, 8 months into it, that we had a commitment from a VC to give us the money. We had close to 100 no's before that.
100 no's before the first yes.
Before the first maybe.
Before the first maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is your first company, networking company you started? You joined actually.
Well, the name of the company was Epsilon.
No, before that you have another company, right?
No,
Excellent.
no. Epsilon was my first company and the only company I started. And so we started that in April of 82. Got funded in December of 82.
Tell me about the journey to the funding. How did you get the funding? Actually, that is important. Everybody wants to know. With zero Indians at the time, you are one of the first ones to get funding.
So funding was very hard, very hard. Like I mentioned before, there were no examples of Indians entrepreneurs. So it was hard for venture capitalists to believe that Indians should be entrepreneurs. It was hard for them to believe that we should be managers, general managers, we should market, we should sell, because there were no examples of that one. So eventually one of the VCs looked at us. He says, very smart people, smart business plan. Maybe it's time to fund an Indian startup. So he was sort of thinking along that line, and John Bosch, of Bay Partners, he was the VC who funded us, and he was pretty skeptic about Indians, but he says maybe it's time to start fund one and see if they can do it. So
where you got this? Yeah, go ahead. Where you got this idea of TCP/IP? Where this idea came to you? I know that protocols are established, but you want to transform a university idea to the practical knowledge of a card, a interface card.
So the TCP/IP came out of UCLA, done as a DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project, effort. So it was sort of being used by the Department of Defense, to do their early networking, mostly long haul networking using telephone lines. Computers in LA talking to computers in New Jersey, talking to computers at the, I think, Oxford, and computers at Berkeley, four node network, and it was designed for a slow haul, unreliable networks, and eventually to be used in the battlefield. By U.S. government was dreaming that eventually the future of the battle will be networked. So when we started doing the Ethernet boards for different machines, we needed software, to go with that one, and there was no good options available. The options available were sort of, still half baked and not quite proven and workable. And then I looked around and I said, TCP/IP works, and maybe if I can put TCP/IP on my Ethernet boards, maybe I'll have a working solution. The problem was Ethernet boards were designed to be super fast and very reliable, and TCP/IP as a protocol was designed for slow and unreliable networks. So theory was that TCP/IP is very unsuitable, for the Ethernet networks. But for me, I basic thought was, hey, I made them together. I have a very good working solution, and maybe this problem that slow networks won't be a problem. Unreliable network won't be a problem. If underlying media is reliable and fast, why would the protocol stay? and that turned out to be the case. Very few people besides me bet on TCP/IP. As a matter of fact, I was the only person betting on TCP/IP for several years, before the others came on board, and that gave me a bit head start. And I didn't care what technologies were being used. I was looking at the problem customers had. They had this hodgepodge of machines. They needed to connect them. They needed to transfer files between them. And that problem was easily solved with what I was offering. So when I was selling, I wasn't pushing TCP/IP and Ethernet initially. Initially I said, if we have this problem of trouble transferring files between the machines, I have a solution for you. And eventually, TCP/IP started to gain momentum, so I started to promote TCP/IP also. And for 2 years, 3 years, we were the only people selling. And then Sun Microsystem, they were doing the Unix machines, Unix workstations, Unix servers. They started to use TCP/IP also. So Sun and Epsilon, were the two early pioneers in TCP/IP networking.
So what I hear, Kanwal, I heard you say simply, "Oh, I don't care. Like I have a solution. I don't care."
I don't care what, but the customer had it. It's like headache.
That's what I
Customer has a
mean.
headache. He
And
doesn't
you're
care
moving.
whether he gets Advil or Tylenol or aspirin. He needs something, right?
Yes, that's my
And-
whole point. I love that story.
Hmm.
Because
So,
when that's what the entrepreneur does.
yeah,
You saw the gummed up situation. That was not a matter. There was no matter there. There was a solution. You had a solution. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you just keep going. They
yeah,
don't have to understand
yeah.
you at the beginning. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
keep
So the fundamental problem was this hodgepodge of machines. Your PC on your desktop, you have a digital mini computer in your back, you have a Unix machine, in the next room, and then you have a mainframe computer. So somehow I need to make them all work on the same network, and TCP/IP offered a very good solution.
very exciting.
Mhm.
Very exciting story. Now, I know that we want to get into your book because if there's maybe a few more stories you want to add, because I know that this story and this journey is in your book. But I believe, Mr. Kanwal, that you have a very lofty goal for, I believe it's India's 100-year anniversary coming up.
I
One second.
feedback.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's on a different computer.
Yeah, it's going, yeah. Also, technology is started. That's a problem.
Yeah,
Good and bad.
Yeah, the feedback. So the India. I tell a story to people that the 20th century was a America century. In America became a superpower at the start of the 20th century. In the Spanish-American War, it won World War One, World War Two, Cold War. Largest economy in the world. So by all means, you can say 20th century was a America century, but in my opinion, it was also a India century. So India was a British colony. British had occupied India for 200 years. Towards the start of 20th century, there was national awakening. Indians say, why are the British ruling us? We have to be independent. So, by early part of 20th century, there was national awakening. Mahatma Gandhi came back from South Africa to lead the freedom movement. Very peaceful but universal freedom movement in India, which got us the freedom in 1947. And India became a democracy, a very large, very diverse, very poor, very illiterate country chose to become a democracy in 1947. And by the end of the century, it had gone through 14, 15 election cycles. It had become a stable democracy and was starting to make strides on the technology front, and become on the economic front. So when I look at the whole thing, it's all in the background with the numbers are not that large, but a giant was awakening up and starting to stretch itself. And now, yeah, yeah, you can see India as emerging as an economic powerhouse.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Kanwalji, so we'll go back to India in a second. Let me ask you, Excellion, X right there. You can. I want to show you the letter or the. We're going to take the camera and show it to you. But you made it public. You went public. What is the struggle that you made the public first time?
Okay, all right. I was answering what she asked. So 1982, so we started the company, and the TCP/IP Ethernet turned out to be the right thing to be doing, and so we were growing nicely and became a very profitable company by 1986, and so we went public in early 1987, in February of 1987. And the growing public means you're stable, you're nicely growing, you're predictable. Company you can sell shares to the public, and so it was a very big deal. And I
I want to ask you, how many people come to invest in your company public because you're Indian known? At the time, Indians are not known.
well, so when you buy stocks on the Nasdaq or the New York Stock Exchange, you don't know who's on the other side. You know the company Epsilon, you know the numbers, you know the sales, you know the profitability, but you don't know there's Indian CEO or non-Indian CEO, right? The analysts are writing about the company and its performance and its products, and so all those numbers were very good. We looked like a very nice company to invest in. So there was a fear. There was a fear on the part of our venture capital investors that people might be sensitive to buying shares run by Indian CEO, but those were proven to be baseless.
Who is your first customer for this, major customers for this, your Excelon?
So Epsilon, so even before we got funded in 1982 December, we had a customer, the company got Plexus Computers here in the Bay Area, and we had another customer called the Victory Computers. So we had two paying customers, before we were funded. By 1983, end of 83, we had maybe about 20 customers. The biggest customer was a company called Massachusetts Computers Company, Mastron, out of Boston. But by the time 1985 rolled around, we had thousands of customers.
So what is the total income revenue you generated for the Excelon?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan. Go ahead.
No, I went for clarification because in 83, he had two customers before funding. And then he said by 85, he had thousands. So that was about a 2-year span.
The reason is very simple, Susan, because the PC was being bought by a large number of people. So PC had become a very popular desktop computer. And all these people had this same problem. They all needed to tie it to their other computers. So we had the solution, for the very timely problem. We had a very timely solution for the problem that people had at the time. So, and we were the only game in town. If you wanted to tie your PC to your Unix machine, to your mini computer, to your mainframe, we were the only game in town.
That'll do it.
Yeah, it may be a surprise to you, Kanwalji. I am in 1980s. I started PCs for doctors. I was selling a single floppy drive computers to the doctors. At that time, I remember speaking with someone. It's not like Ceylon. There's a networking company, what is that? Another company. They were supplying a networking card.
There were several of them. But there were several companies supplying network cards. Epsilon was one. Tricom.
You were there in the previous company before Epsilon. You were in the different company, right?
No. I was the pioneer in computer networking. There was no networking company before.
Oh, really? Okay.
There was no networking companies before. We started. That year, about half a dozen companies started. Epsilon, Tricom. There was a company called Interland out of Boston. network systems out of Minneapolis. Yeah, there were about six companies started, but we were the only people who bet on TCP/IP. So we were the only people who could connect, and give you the instant solution. The other people gave you the hardware, and you were on your own to do your software. So nobody offered you a complete solution besides us.
You know,
Yeah.
Susan, you changed the complete medical industry because I used to take some of his cards and put in the networking in the doctor's offices. Because front desk they need a server is to be there. Front desk need a
Oh,
computer.
you check out about Novel.
Novel, yes.
Yeah.
Novel was.
Yeah.
I used to buy Novel. It was a tough
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I had a hard time.
So Novel, offered you networking between different PCs.
Yeah.
And a shared data server in the back. Novel NetWare would connect half a dozen PCs that you have in your office and let them share the data with each other.
You were working with that company, right?
Later.
Yeah. Okay.
Later. So Novel didn't offer this solution to connecting your PCs to your mini computers, to your Unix machines, to your mainframes. Novel could help you share the data between handful of PCs.
So you moved from Exelon to tell us. Yeah, that's
So,
right.
so company went public in 1987. There was a market crash in October of 1987. Big crash. Stock market went from 2,700 down to 600. 75% drop in the stock prices. Our stock dropped from roughly about $18 to $6.
Oh my gosh.
Also, and so it was a pretty hard crash, and we started to recover by 88, and by 89 we mostly had recovered, not fully but mostly had recovered. But at that time Novell had emerged as a big player. Millions of PCs being sold. Novell Network was helping share the data between PCs, and so it had become a very big company. And Novell came to acquire us, buy us out. We were already public company, and they offered us 50% premium of our market price. So our stock was selling at $12. They offered us $18 a share. It was a hard thing to say no to because the shareholders loved the offer. So we took that offer, and we became part of Novell in the summer of 1969. And so I stayed at Novell after that merger for about 5 years. And then I sort of left Novell at the end of 1994.
89 to 94.
Yeah. Oh, so
Okay.
no, you sold it to the company to Novel, right?
Yeah,
became Novel.
Yeah, we became part of Novell.
Novel. So that day you were chairman, CEO for that Novel also?
No, I wasn't chairman, CEO. I was number 2 person at Novell. Ray Norda was the CEO and chairman, and I was the EVP and the chief operating officer. But I effectively ran Novell for 3 years, and Novell did very, very well during that time.
What is their gross income at the time?
No, Novell. So when Novell acquired us in summer of 1969, they were doing $200 million in revenue, and we were doing roughly about $69 million in revenue. And we were making roughly about $10 million in profits, and they were making roughly about $30 million in profits. So Novell was about 3 times our size in both profits and in revenue. And so they offered us 50% premium over our market price. So it was a pretty tempting offer, hard to say no to, right?
How
Yeah,
did you?
I think so.
Yeah. How did you accept that as a number 2 rather than number 1? It is a tough. Are you have a good relationship with CEO? Or?
Yeah, initially very good relation with CEO. Like I mentioned, even though I was number 2, I was effectively running the company. And stock price was doing really, really well. They had given us 50% premium, and Novell stock took off like a rocket right after the merger. It went up tenfold.
No.
So, so yeah, so it was very good deal for our shareholders. I was very happy because I was getting richer by the day, right? And but then the relationship soured. Noel was based in Utah, and we were based in California. Utah is a Mormon country by and large. And I'm running the company. And I'm not a Mormon person. And that didn't sit with many people.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's because they didn't drink coffee. I forced to them to have coffee in the office. I said you don't drink doesn't mean that I shouldn't drink either. Yeah, and after a while, that became a problem. Where they wanted to have the company run by a Mormon person.
Susan, you're not a Mormon. You would not have a chance either. I would not have a chance either.
Utah is
Mormon country.
70% Mormon, maybe.
Yeah, that is a huge number. After that, let us talk about you. You started the Indian Revolution. So your journey to India. I met Vajpayee in New York City, the Prime Minister at that time. He came to Mukunda Modi was in New York City. He introduced me to Vajpayee. So you had a lot of relationship with India. You're going back and forth. And tell us about how you connected the Stanford research to the Indian policymakers. You did a journey that was very interesting.
So I had sort of left India behind. After I left in 1967, I was married here. My wife was American, and I was very focused on myself, my own well-being, my family's well-being. And 1992, India started to change. India was very socialist before that, and it was starting to become, we want to do, stuff, like, technology, entrepreneurship. And I'm still busy at Novell, Epsilon, but 93, 94, I was starting to disengage from Novell. And I started to, and I was very engaged, by the way, by that time, to Stanford. I had been contributing to Stanford Institute of Economic Policy Research, CEPR, and I was on the board of CEPR. And all of a sudden, we are starting to form this group called TIE, the Indus entrepreneurs in the valley, to encourage our younger people to become entrepreneurs, mentor them. So TIE was happening. I was part of the CEPR, and TIE was starting to work with CEPR to study the Indian economy. So we started a conference on Indian economy at Stanford for several years. And so from there, I got sort of pulled in. Once I left Novell at the end of 94, I was looking for things to do. Mostly, it was around Thai, CEPR, and then I started to travel to India to see what's happening. And I got pulled into that one, and that became a full-time passion for me for next 10 years. And sort of helped transform India, helped transform the Indian community in the U.S. And it was it was fun.
But after that, you became an investor most of the time. Yeah, Exodus is one of the investment company became a big hit for you. So tell us that journey.
So we started this group called TIE, and our goal was to encourage our people to become entrepreneurs. So it wasn't, the goal wasn't to invest. It was to become mentors, role models. Just become available. But the original problem that I had, VCs were still not funding companies started by Indians, was still there. There were very smart entrepreneurs that I would see, and I would send them to my VC friends, and they will turn them down. And so at one of those turn downs, I said, this guy is smart. Maybe I should fund it in myself. And I sort of made the angel investment. you know, I had no investment experience. But I was getting pretty upset. Hey, these are smart people, and people are still not funding them. So in 1985, through that process, I invested in 7 companies.
Oh,
Exodus Communication was one of those 7, and yeah,
6 went public, right?
no, all 7 of them succeeded in some fashion, and 2 of them went public.
Public, okay.
And yeah, so by the end of 1987, 2 years into that one, I realized that, hey, this is very profitable thing. I'm doing good, yeah, for the younger people, and I'm doing well financially at the same time. And so the reason I didn't go back to do another startup, in 1987, when we went public, I was only 42. So I wasn't, I should have started, another startup, but I stayed at Novell for 5 years, 6 years, so by the time I left Novell in 1984, I was only 40, 47, 48. But by that time I am getting really busy with Thai, with India, with investing in the companies, and I'm starting to do financially very, very well also. This is the dot-com boom era. Dot-com boom is happening. I am in the middle of it.
So you have I heard something Bohemian Club. What is that Bohemian Club? I was surprised with something about Bohemian Club. Tell us a little bit. You're not a party person, I know.
So the Bohemian Club is a Republican group, based, in a city just north of Sacramento. California, Republicans, bigwigs, at that time, people like George Schultz, they will meet once a year, to discuss, their politics and policies. So, so they, by late 90s, that group was starting to see India as a potential ally of US.
The Republicans saw the first time in
Oh
India.
yeah, it was mostly Republicans, not Democrats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Democrats never liked India. It was mostly Republicans, and they reached out to Prime Minister Vajpayee's advisor, Brajesh Mishra,
Oh,
and Brajesh Mishra came to see me. He said, these guys want to talk to me, and they are telling me that U.S. and India should be allies. Should I trust them? Because this notion was Democrats are pro-India, Republicans are pro-China, right, at that time. But I told them, no, you should spend time with them, learn, and I was sort of in the middle of that one, advising the Indian, advisor to the Prime Minister, Brajesh Mishra, and by 2001, that translated into U.S.-India nuclear deal. The
so the Republican support, you got the India nuclear deal.
Oh, it was all Republicans.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
It was George Bush Jr., right?
Yeah, George Bush Jr., yeah.
Yeah, he did it. If you go back 2 years, towards the end of Clinton era, U.S. was pretty anti-India.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when India did the explosion of a nuclear device, the bomb, in 1998, the Mrs. Madam Albright.
Oh, Madam Albright.
She was
Secretary of State.
Yeah, she was furious, and she told Indians all sorts of names.
The Democratic Party did not.
Yeah, she told all sorts of names. These people are uppity people. We don't put them in their place. That kind of language.
Really?
Yeah. I used to tell Mrs. Madam Albright, Madam not at Albright.
That's funny. Go ahead, Susan. Anything you want to
So the U.S.-India nuclear deal happened around 2001, 2002, and I was in the middle of that. And by that time, India was starting to move big. The Indian IT industry started to gain momentum. Indian IT industry started around 1989, and by 1990 it was doing $1 billion in revenue. By 2010,
Yeah.
it was doing $10 billion in revenue, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Then the journey to the book.
yeah,
Now the new book, Groundbreaker book.
yeah,
Let us talk about that.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
the Groundbreaker? Yeah. Finish it up.
just finished it up.
Yeah.
The Indian IT industry became $10 billion industry by 2010, became $100 billion industry by 2020, and is roughly about $400 billion in size now. It's a massive industry, massive, and yeah, roughly about 10 million Indians, work in the industry, mostly doing the IT work for US.
Oh. So tell us, if you were writing a book is not fun. It's a lot of work. How did you start this writing the book? And the last time, Susan, you can ask. You remember you were mentioning the book. It was kind of didn't mention about that. So Susan, go ahead and ask. Yeah.
Well, no, we were kind of got into it. I guess that was a little early of my ask, because I know we're talking about your journey throughout this entire presentation here today, but it is in your book. And last time we were on the show together, you were getting ready to go to India for your book launch. So how did that go? And I know you kind of combined not only your book tour with Thai. You were able to kind of double dip while you were in India on this last trip. Tell us about that.
So the book. So my son, he's a film producer. Unbeknownst to me, he was doing a documentary on me. For about 3-4 years, and for his documentary, he had been researching, me, and he had a big folder of papers, that he had, internet, various things, and so, material for his documentary. So he said that, I have this material. There's a book here. You should write a book. And and I wasn't sure, because I had not, I'm not an author, right? And so I said, I'm not sure, that, but he said, no, you have to write the book. So he helped me find a ghostwriter. So we spent 2 years writing the book. And by the way, that documentary is being premiered in about 10 days, 12 days in LA.
Breaking the code.
Yeah, the breaking the code, and
Really, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And it will be in San Francisco around May 9th or so. So the book came out of his thing, and I spent 2 years with the help of this this author, Todd Goldman. By the way, Todd Goldman have done over 50 books, mostly for the Hollywood personalities. Drew Barrymore, Michael Kramer. He's done about 50 books. 20 of them are New York Times bestsellers. So he was willing to help me write the book. So it was very nice. And the two of us spent about a year, initial write, then a year, rewriting, re-editing. It's a hard work. It's a lot of to have a story to tell, that people will find interesting. It takes effort.
So how was the tour? How did it go? How was it received?
So the book was a bestseller. Is a bestseller in India. Very quickly. When we traveled all over India in January. Went to 3 literary festivals, and then we went to we had about 30 events in about 30 days in India, about 13 cities tour. So it was the book was a pretty big hit pretty quickly, and sold out the first print. So they're doing the second printing, and so we came back to US and we started our US tour, and we've been to New York, Atlanta, LA, Dallas. We have several events in the Bay Area. Going to Chicago, next week. And then to Boston, to New Jersey. So we have U.S. tour is on, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's doing fairly well in the U.S. also.
Kanwal, you have the energy of a 20-year-old, and it looks like we have some groupies here.
Yeah, we have some fans here.
Yeah.
We have some fans here. Let me introduce. Can you stand up, Kanwalji? We all sit down and we're going to hold the book. If you can all hold the book, is good. Let me, we're all. I hope it is focusing on. I think it is not. I don't know why he's not doing that.
Yeah, he's out of focus.
So, Ramesh?
Yeah, this is Ramesh Anamraju, my son, clinical researcher. Yeah, so say something about Groundbreaker. Ramesh is Vanderbilt, the clinical researcher. He is from Vanderbilt University Neuroscience. But he always loves technology. Tell us a little bit about what do you think about this whole journey to writing a book. You wrote a lot of songs as a musician.
Yeah. So
See, this camera has this auto.
Yeah.
It finds and I don't know how to control it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say. Yeah, that's okay. That's it. Go hold the book and talk about it.
so completing a project of this magnitude and scale is always difficult because when people read this book, they don't realize the effort that goes into every page, the life experience that goes into every page. So I always like to say it didn't take me a year to make this project. It took me a lifetime. It took me my lifetime to this point to make this because of all the things I had to learn and the person I'd become to make this. So, I'm definitely, excited to tap into this. And I think it's really groundbreaking.
Well said, Ramesh. That's taken my time.
The book, from the day we decided to do, to date, that release was about 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Let me introduce a real estate developer, Sameer Singh Malik. Sameer Singh, tell us a little bit about this book and Kanwalji's reputation. You're from Silicon Valley. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's their lifetime experience. They put it in a book. Just writing a book is not an easy thing, They moved from India and then he did too much in technology, so he did a lot in his life. And he put everything in a book, so everybody should read the book and understand. Thank you.
The book is
You can.
the book is not about technology, and the book is not about.
Yeah.
I think this will turn
Yeah,
back.
you can turn yourself.
It will turn back by itself. There it goes.
Yeah.
It will
It's
find
like
itself.
on a roller coaster, fellas.
It will find. It finds. If I was real smart, I would go and open the app and see. But Stammer is tied to this
Yeah.
app.
Where is available this book? Amazon? And,
The book is available on Amazon and is available at stores and but mostly at Amazon. By the way, the book is not meant for Indians alone. Book explains the rise of Indian Americans, what happened, how come Indian Americans became successful so quickly in America. Very few people realize the 25% of all the entrepreneurs in America are Indian Americans. Indian Americans are only 1%, 1.5% of the population. 25% of the entrepreneurs, about 15% of all the doctors, and the 10 to 15% of the professors at universities. So Indians are pretty much a part of the American society now. So the book explains their rise, explains the rise of India itself, and of course, is based on.
I'll send you autograph of Kanwalji's book to you, okay, Susan?
Yes,
you
that
can
would
sign
be
it all of us. It's truly an honor to talk with you, Kanwalji. Your journey is memorable, and it's like a life lesson to all these next generation of people. Is really you paved the way. I know you for a long time, and you may not know me, but I know you a long time, and I followed you all your journey through the networking and all those things.
Yeah.
And it is a truly an privilege and honor to have you and India at your home hosting us. That's really fantastic. Susan, I give you the final word, and can I come down here and with the book, and we're all standing in the line. We're all in the books. Groundbreaker. Don't forget, guys. So, Susan, you say good.
Thank you again for sharing your story. And I think that any entrepreneur, any STEM student in India and or America, anyone who's thinking of combining STEM and becoming an entrepreneur should read your book. And more so, I like to remind everybody that you do have Breaking the Code is premiering this week in California. And I believe you can still get tickets to go see that live.
Oh,
that
it's in LA.
Yes.
I think the premiere is on 22nd of this month, or maybe 21st of one of those days.
So get the book, read the pages. Extraordinary, ordinary man doing extraordinary things. What a pleasure, Kanwal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.